I got a surprise for you today. They're big, they're beautiful, and you're gonna love them. I'm gonna show you my meatballs. Really? Intro. Welcome back to another episode of Plant-Based Dads. I'm Joey. We are a vegan, mostly whole foods cooking channel. We do some product reviews. Sometimes there's some episodes with Tim. If you like what you hear so far, please hit that like button, show us some love, and please think about subscribing and becoming part of the Plant-Based Dads family. We do have a Patreon page set up. Our patrons are our monthly financial supporters that help us put the show together and get the plant-based message out to the public. If you've ever seen the show or if you're in the Facebook group and thought, how can I help? How can I be part of this? That's how you can help. You can become a monthly supporter on Patreon, or you can also do a one-time donation on PayPal. There's a link to PayPal and Patreon below this video in the description. And if you're a financial supporter of the show, you get the videos 2 days early. You get them on Friday night or Saturday morning before they come out. So that's kind of a nice bonus too. As you may be aware, I am 100% Italian. Both of my parents' families migrated through Ellis Island from Italy. And my heritage is the same as every other New York Italian. We grew up making fresh pasta and sauce on Sundays and making a lot of it. We had a family of 5, well, 7 with my parents. And we would reheat it, because we would freeze it, and we would reheat it on Wednesday or the next Wednesday. So twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays, we had pasta. So I don't, you know, I've had a lot of pasta in my life. I don't ever think when we're going out or we're making a meal at home, I never think Italian food. I've had so much of it, I really could never eat it again, and I'll be perfectly happy. So I don't think about spaghetti and meatballs, which is what I'm making for you today. My family loves Italian food. Apparently, I've had people ask me, you know, about Italian food, and I always just assumed it was something everyone's tired of. So today I'm gonna show you how to make my pasta, spaghetti. I'm using spaghetti here, but I like this on fettuccine because I love the flat noodles. But I'm gonna show you how to make my spaghetti and meatballs. Now, I'm using my oil-free marinara that I have from another video, but I'm gonna show you how to make it here. I'm just using standard wheat noodles for the spaghetti, right? So that works on starch solution. But my meatballs, we call them meatballs because they're not made of meat. My meatballs are a mushroom arborio rice breadcrumb mixture base with some seasoning in it and onions and all that. And they are absolutely delicious. Yes, I can't stand mushrooms, you're right. But in this recipe, the mushrooms are pulsed through a food processor, so they're just little bits. So I don't get that mushroomy look or texture to it, right? It just looks like, you know, ground something, right? And when you eat the meatballs, you don't have any of that mushroom taste, especially with that marinara on it. So I really think that you're gonna love this. I even forgot, like I had posted on Facebook many years ago that I'd made this recipe, and some of my friends had tried it and they absolutely loved it. So this is just something we make occasionally, and it's really good to freeze. You can freeze these meatballs, you can freeze the marinara, you can freeze the whole thing, and then just throw it on top of some cooked noodles, which you can do in 10 minutes any night of the week. So if you're looking for a freezer recipe, if you're looking for a simple Italian recipe, if you're looking for a substitute for meatballs, if you're looking for any of that, this is the recipe. All right, I put a lot of time into this. You're really gonna love this. Let's get to the food. The first thing we're gonna need to do is get our rice going. I've got a sauce pot here, and in my sauce pot, I'm gonna add 2 2/3 of a cup of vegetable broth. I'm just using Better Than Bouillon here. I'm gonna set that to medium-high heat and bring this to a boil. Once the water starts boiling, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of uncooked dry arborio rice. I'm gonna stir that up here, and then I'm gonna reduce the heat to medium and let it simmer. I let this simmer for about 20 minutes, and I stir it every so often. I'm gonna let this cook until the rice has absorbed all of the water. Toward the end, I'm gonna stir it a lot so it doesn't burn as the water's being absorbed. And you wanna get to the point where when you're sticking your spatula through the rice, it's trailing. And right here you can see the liquid isn't rushing back to cover up where the spoon's going. That means most of it's absorbed, and now it's just a creamy rice. That's exactly what we're looking for. This is done. So I'm gonna remove this from the heat. Now I'm gonna grab a large bowl, and I'm just gonna transfer this rice right to this large bowl so it can cool off. Now I can set that aside and get started with my mushrooms. So I've got in my food processor here, and I'm gonna take 2 cups of mushrooms. These are a mixture of portobello mushrooms and baby bella mushrooms. Right here are the portobello mushrooms, and you can kind of see here, it's just portobello mushrooms that I've kind of ripped into pieces. They're going through the food processor, so they don't have to be perfect. And I've ripped out like that vein stuff, that kind of fan stuff on the inside, so, because I don't like that part. You can leave that in if you want. I'm just gonna put this in batches, and I'm just gonna give this a pulse a few times. I don't want it to get mushy, I just want it to be ground. And if I remove the cover, you can see here that that's what I've got. So I'm gonna pull these mushrooms out of here and move on to the next. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just taking my batches of my ground pulse mushrooms and putting them in this bowl. You wanna make sure after it's ground that you have at least 2 full cups of mushrooms. I used about 1.5 pounds of mushrooms total. Now it's time to start cooking. I'm gonna grab my skillet and set it to medium heat. I'm gonna add a little bit of water for sauteing. I'm not using oil. When the water starts steaming, I'm gonna add 2 onions diced up nice and small. And I'm gonna give that a little mixy here so I have plenty of surface area to cook. I'm just gonna saute that in the water for about 5 minutes until the onions are nice and soft. Just keep moving around. If you need to add more water so it doesn't burn, do that. I probably have a little too much here, but it'll work out fine. After about 5 minutes, when the onions are nice and soft, I'm gonna add garlic grated. I don't like to bite in the garlic, so I grate it to make sure it's really fine. I'm just gonna mix all that in with the onions and give that a little bit of time for the garlic to cook. After about 3 to 4 minutes, when the garlic is nice and fragrant, it'll be time to add my mushrooms. I'm just gonna pop that right in there. I'm just gonna grab my spatula and get it all mixed up there so these flavors can all get to know each other. I want it all to be thoroughly mixed. I'm gonna let this mushroom, onion, and garlic mixture start cooking. The mushrooms will start releasing water, so you'll notice there's a lot more water in the pan. So you wanna cook that until all of that water has been released and then steamed off, so there's no water left in the pan. You can see here, that's what's happening. I'm just kind of moving it around. The water's coming out of the mushrooms and suddenly there's plenty of water in here. Now I'm just gonna keep mixing it up and moving it around. Now you can see right here, there's no water left in the pan. We've got some bubbles, but that's it. The water has all been steamed off and this is cooked and ready to go. This process took about 10 minutes for me. Now I'm just gonna grab my bowl with the rice in it that's nice and cool, and I'm just gonna dump my cooked mushroom, garlic, and onion mixture right into this bowl with the rice. Now I'm gonna grab my spatula and give it a mix here and make sure it's all nice and combined. You can see the base of the meatball starting to form. Now it's time for the fillings. I'm adding 1 full cup of breadcrumbs. I didn't quite have a full cup here, and you'll see later on I had to go back and add a little bit more. So make sure you have a full cup. Next I've got 1/3 of a cup of nutritional yeast. And then I'm adding about 1/4 cup of clean, fresh cut parsley, diced into small little pieces. Next I've got about 1 teaspoon of salt, and then about 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I just eyeballed it. I love me some pepper, so I'm not worried about getting too much pepper in here. Then I'm using a vegan egg. And this one here is just made up of some egg replacer. I think it's Bob's Red Mill egg replacer. I made the egg replacer mixture, let it sit for a few minutes on the counter, and it just makes kind of this sticky, gooey ball thing. So I'm dumping 1 egg replacer vegan egg into this mixture to hold it together. Now I'm gonna kind of mix it up. I'm starting to use a spatula here and it's just not going the way I want. So eventually I kind of just give in and use my hands. I hate getting my hands dirty when I'm cooking, but really this is the best way to do this. As I'm doing this, I realize I don't have enough breadcrumbs in here. I'm Italian, I know exactly how meatballs should look, and this is just too moist. You can judge if you like them moist, and that's fine. I like mine to be bready. So I added some more breadcrumbs, and I'm just gonna continue to mix it all up here. And now I've got, looks like a fine meatball dough here, ready to form into little shapes. I'm just taking like a tablespoon or 2 at a time and squeezing it together, and then I'm just kind of rolling it and making the meatball shapes here. You can see I've got quite a few of them on the plate already. This makes about 24 meatballs. And here they are, ready to go on the cooking tray. I got about 23 out of this batter based on the size that I made. Now I'm just gonna line them up on a silicone mat on a baking tray, and I'm just gonna try and get them all in there on rows just so they cook evenly. And you can see here, they're all kind of lined up and ready to go. I'm gonna put these into a preheated oven at 400 degrees. I cooked mine for about 20 minutes. After about 20 minutes, I turned them. I just have a little spatula and some tongs. And you can see here, like they didn't really stick. So they're turning nicely, but I have the spatula just in case, right? Because I didn't spray this with oil or anything. And then I put them back in the oven for another 20 minutes. After about 30 to 40 minutes of total cooking time, I took these meatballs out of the oven. And I'm grabbing a knife here, and they're really hot, so I can't touch them. And I'm just gonna cut through one of them
I want to make sure that they're fully cooked. Now, I mean, it is just vegetables on the inside, so I'm not too worried as far as safety, but I do want them to be crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. And that is exactly what I have here. Again, these are very hot, but I'm doing the best I can here. But you can see here, those look great. You can see the rice inside, the outside's crispy. These are perfect little meatballs. Now we're on to the marinara. I'm starting with a saucepan, and I'm adding a 28-ounce can of low-sodium crushed tomatoes. I'm just using these here from Sprouts. They're just organic crushed Roma tomatoes. I feel like these are my favorite right here. Then I'm adding a tablespoon of dried oregano, a tablespoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, because I can't have one of these without the other, right? A 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And I'm using about a tablespoon of maple syrup here. You could use brown sugar if you want. I just prefer maple syrup. And then I'm adding a little bit of salt here, about a 1/2 teaspoon. I'm gonna use my spatula here and mix this all together until I've got it nice and combined. Now I'm gonna turn the heat on to medium-high and bring this to a bubble. After about 3 to 5 minutes, it'll start bubbling and spitting everywhere. When that happens, you wanna reduce the heat to a low and you want it to simmer. You might need to put the cover on. I did, because this stuff was just going everywhere. It was on the camera, it was everywhere. And that's what marinara does, it spits. So you're most likely gonna need the cover. Let that simmer for about 5 to 8 minutes and keep stirring it often so it doesn't burn. You can see here it's simmering. We have a beautiful looking marinara sauce. They're gonna be perfect on those mushrooms. You can also see it spitting all over the place. If you want good food, you gotta make a mess. Now it's time to plate this up. I don't know why it looks like a dream sequence here, but it was kind of dreamy anyway. Now I'm just putting in some spaghetti that I just cooked by the manufacturer's instructions, and I've got 2 of my meatballs right here. I'm gonna ladle some of my fresh made marinara sauce right on top of my meatballs, and then I'm gonna cover some of that pasta. And I'm gonna cover it a little more because why not? Next I'm gonna sprinkle some oregano or basil on top, whatever you have. And there you have it, an absolutely beautiful plate of spaghetti, oil-free marinara, and meatballs. And I know those meatballs are a lot of work to make, but once you've made them, you can just freeze them just like the sauce, and basically pull this out of the freezer the night before and serve this up on some pasta in just a few minutes. Not only does this look good, it smells amazing. I can't wait to dig in. That's our video for today. Please hit that like button. Show us some love. We've got spaghetti, oil-free marinara, and meatballs. What else could you want, right? Hit that subscribe button, click that bell. You'll get notified every time we have a new video, usually every Monday. And please, leave a comment below. Do you like Italian food? Would you like to see me cook more Italian food? I really thought no one cared about Italian food until one of my friends asked me about it on Facebook. And I realized that maybe it's just me. Maybe the rest of the world does want to eat Italian food. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.